Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I am your host, The Chosen Lawyer. For episode number 77, we have a returning guest, Mr. Elan Weintraub of Mortgage Outlet. Elan, welcome back to The Chosen Life.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we did the last one, you recall, several episodes before, and we did that one in person. We were talking about autographs that day, autographs, how to get autographs, sports athletes, and we had a ton of fun reminiscing down memory lane. And today, Elan, we're going to have you on the hot seat because today we're going to learn about you. We're going to learn about who you are, what you do, and how to encourage others to get into the industry of mortgages.
Great.
So first and foremost, Elan Weintraub again, relate to us. So your company is called Mortgage Outlet.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit something about Mortgage Outlet. For somebody who has never seen Mortgage Outlet before, never heard of it, what is Mortgage Outlet?
Okay. Well, we're a mortgage brokerage. So we help borrowers find mortgages at big banks, credit unions, insurance companies, private lending, commercial construction. And we have well over 100 mortgage brokers and agents at Mortgage Outlet. We fund over $1 billion a year of mortgage volume. We've won actually quite a few industry awards. So you could check out our Google reviews. We've won Brokerage of the Year, Employer of the Year, and we're dedicated mortgage professionals.
Well, let me ask you, let's say my name is John Smith. I'm John Smith. I bank at one of the major banks.
Sure.
I've had my bank account there since I was, 15. I'm now in my 50s, let's say 40s, whatever. And to John Smith, going to the bank, the lender you've known your whole life versus going to a mortgage broker such as yourself, why would somebody come work with Mortgage Outlet when they can just stick with the bank they know?
You mean like a borrower?
They have their general bank accounts. They're thinking about getting now a mortgage,
Sure.
a secured line of credit. And they're like, oh, I've heard of mortgage brokers, but like I already bank at a bank. I have a bank
Sure.
account there. Why go to a
Right.
mortgage broker?
Yeah, I mean, I have a kind of funny analogy for this, but when you walk into your bank, it's kind of like walking into a BMW dealership. So you're going to get, a pretty good car, pretty good price, like it's BMW, whatever it is. But the missing element is if you don't know anything about cars, the BMW dealer is not going to tell you that Audi is on sale this week, or that a minivan is better for your carpool, or that a Jeep is better because you have a cottage, or that a Ferrari is better because it's a cooler car, or that a Tesla is better on gas. So when you go to a mortgage broker, they'll kind of explain, all the different options, all the different lenders, and then ultimately you're making an informed decision versus like, we only have one product, it's BMW, buy it or don't buy it.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we are in similar industries in that we are in the customer service, client service industry.
Mm-hmm.
My take is working with, I'm being in the industry now for a couple of decades. People say I work with a mortgage broker. Not all mortgage brokers are created equally. Everybody thinks, you get the same certification and you can get the exact same mortgages. So one mortgage broker is exactly the same as the other. How do you help differentiate for people, yourself versus any other mortgage broker on the street?
Well, I think one of the things that I do is I spend time with my clients, helping them to understand the scenarios, the options. I spend a lot of time, I use the word flawlessly understanding your clients. So if you're getting divorced, if you have student loans in the US, if you have an Airbnb or a cottage, all of those things, are you leasing your car? Are you incorporated? And that way I can help provide you with different options that are relevant to your current situation, but also potentially anticipating, any changes in the future. Oh, I have a new construction, it's closing in a year. My son is getting married and I want to give him $50,000, whatever it is. So looking at that broad picture.
Now, I'm going to add a disclaimer here so people know I've known Elan Weintraub for my whole life, pretty much. We've gone to many, many levels of school together, grade school, high school, undergrad, business school together. So we've been through the trenches quite a bit. And I steered off in one direction, you steered off in the other. And I got to ask you, Elan, because one of the things I would say as far as working with you, and we've worked together obviously on many transactions together, But compared to, I would say, the mortgage broker off the street, one of the first things I noticed, besides obviously your bubbly personality, your knowledge, is the education. You come in as somebody with a vast amount of education and experience outside of mortgages. And my impression is that gives you a big leg up in the industry that you're in. True or false?
Well, listen, I mean, it certainly helps having, experience in accounting and finance and all these wonderful things. I also think there's an element of, I'm a full-time professional. And again, even when I'm training my team, the way I articulate it is you have an architect, you have a lawyer, you have an accountant, and you have a mortgage broker. So like a true professional vertical, not just someone that, wrote an exam and 5 minutes later they're issuing mortgages. There's a lot more to it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny story, but in the last 2 weeks, I had two clients that came to me and asked for a mortgage on the wrong property. And when I say they asked for a mortgage on the wrong property, they were landlords, they had these different scenarios. And I said, well, why don't we do this property because that might be more tax efficient? Or why don't we do this property because it will let you kind of manage your cash flows better? And, they confirm with their accountant, and they were actually annoyed because their bank didn't suggest any of it. One of the most important things that I do as a mortgage broker is I'm not an order taker. And what I mean by that is a client might say, I want a line of credit. And I will certainly look at that and analyze the different options. But I might say, hey, we can get you a line of credit. Here's some options. But I actually think this might be a better way to do it. Have you thought about this? And a lot of times they haven't thought about it. So I'm not just here to say, I want this, I want that. Like, yes, I will definitely include that because you asked me. But it's also like, well, what other options? What can work better? What are my goals? How can I improve my cash flow? How can I invest better?
Well, one question that I've never asked you in all the years that I've known you is that reality is based on your education, on your experience. You come from the corporate world. You could have picked so many different professions. You could have been doing so much different in your life. You could have decided to go up into the rat race, so to speak, and climb the corporate ladder. Out of everything, you chose to be a mortgage broker. That was your conscientious decision. It wasn't something you had to out of desperation. It's something that you decided you wanted to do and you thrust yourself fully into versus, the part timer who does it kind of as a hobby where they have one or two other jobs and they just do mortgages on the side. What was your reasoning and how did you decide that this was the industry for you?
I mean, I love real estate, so that's something. I love finance. And to me, when I look at a mortgage, I actually look at it as a puzzle. So you need to get all of the information, get all of the facts, and then look at different possible solutions. And I think when you do that, that's kind of like the fun analytical side, but then you're also helping someone either build wealth or a first-time buyer buy a property, or, frankly, some of the most rewarding mortgages that I do are refinances when people are really struggling, they have too much debt, they have car loans and credit cards, and I refinance them into one simple low-rate mortgage, and I massively de-stress their life. Sometimes those are the most rewarding mortgages because you're actually helping someone, giving them a second chance, helping them to de-stress as well.
What was your eureka moment? Like, when did you first say, this is a job, this is a profession, this is an industry, I want to get into this? Do you recall that first moment when it hit you?
Well, my business partner, Sean Stillman, who we went to high school with him as well. He has an accounting background, and he was actually a mortgage broker as well. I was in the corporate world at the time, and we basically got together. And I didn't want to work in the corporate world. I do find it to be a rat race, and I love the freedom of being able to be accountable to myself, to be accountable to my clients, to help solve problems and also build results. So it was kind of every single check mark, real estate, math, business, helping people, being my own kind of business owner, all of those things really kind of work together. So it was pretty obvious.
If you don't meet Sean or you don't connect with Sean, do you think you still are where you are today?
Well, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without Sean. Every path, every decision, every right turn, every left turn, has a big impact on your life. But, very simply, he got into the business before I did. So to say that, I would have gone into it without him is not very probable, or maybe medium probability. But the funny thing is, and I don't know if you know this, Sean became a mortgage broker because of me. And basically, I told him, I said, hey, you're looking for a side gig. You're an accountant, this, that, and the other, get your mortgage license. So I actually got him into the industry, and then he brought me into the industry. So pretty circular.
It's pretty funny how both your lives changed as a result, and both of you
Yep.
don't connect how things could be so different.
Yeah, 100%.
I've told my story many times of coming to Kormans LLP, and I'm here and I'm doing what I'm doing as a real estate lawyer simply because I mentioned once in passing to somebody in a lunchroom what my future aspirations were, and he happened to connect with a childhood friend that he had not seen in many, many years. And at a hockey game, that's where the connection made, and all of a sudden I get a call out of the blue. If I don't say that one thing in a lunchroom, my whole career, my whole life trajectory changes. And for all the listeners out there, think about where you are in life, think about how you got there, and how it could have been not even, let's say, by fluke or destiny or whatever, but how one instance of you decided to go somewhere where you didn't think you were going to go that day, or you spoke to somebody, and how everything cycles that way. That's life. You change one element and everything can snowball.
Well, there's a movie with Gwyneth Paltrow called Sliding Doors. I don't know if I ever saw it, but the premise is, in the first half of the movie, so she's running late for a subway, and one scenario is she gets on the subway, and then she gets on the subway and goes on, and the other scenario, the doors close and she doesn't get on the subway. That's why it's called Sliding Doors, and her life massively changes because in the first scenario, she got on the subway, and in the second scenario, the door shut and she didn't get on the subway. So butterfly effect, sliding doors, absolutely.
I will rent it. And I really did think at the time that her and Ben Affleck were going to make it. And you just never,
I don't
ever,
know.
ever know in life. Elan, you and I, as far as encountering our clients, because, you preparing the mortgages, me as a real estate lawyer, closing the transactions. One thing I would say, as far as for the average person out there that isn't involved in mortgages, it's amazing how you could be watching, your neighbor and people saying, I got to keep up with the Joneses. They look like they're so wealthy. Look at all the stuff they got. We know the underside of it because you see the Porsches and the trips and the fancy clothes. We see the amount of debt and what's getting rolled into mortgages. And I can tell you, there's many times, even people that I've known very closely, I would have never guessed for a second. I thought these guys were for sure, totally in the black, no red. They must be laughing at life. And I realized everything is built on a house of cards of debt, and it keeps blowing my mind year to year.
Yeah, I mean, there's different. You can't really judge someone based on how they look, and one of this is a bit of a tangent, but like one of the concerns of social media is, you see everyone at a steak restaurant or in Las Vegas or in Paris or whatever, and it's like that's not reality. Like people don't, or most people don't jet set and eat fancy dinners 365 nights a year. And definitely, as you said, people have credit card debt, they have car loans, they can't make their payments, especially now, given how higher interest rates have jumped. Even making their basic mortgage payment has become a huge challenge for them.
You and I being based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and reading an old study that said the average Canadian had 8 credit cards, if that includes department store cards, credit cards, gas cards, what be it. But I can't tell you how many times, like, I've seen clients, and they could be two professionals, a doctor and a lawyer, for example, a lawyer, an accountant, whatever, and they're making over $500,000 each. But yet I see 5, 6 credit cards maxed out. I see car payments, car loans, and it just feels like, they then values go up in the property. They're like, oh, cool. Instead of using this value, I'm going
Yeah.
to build wealth. I'm going to use it to roll in debt. They keep their debt as far as the credit cards and the lines of credits, bring them down to zero. And then I feel like I'm going to see them back in 5 years from now, back to square
Yeah.
one. And, I always say, if you're going to build a successful life, you have to have certain professionals you're working with, as far as a lawyer, a mortgage broker, a realtor, an accountant, a financial planner, as far as, making a budget, insurances, pre-planning. So many people, they think I make a good income, I'm fairly young. That stuff will all sort itself out. And then all of a sudden, a life instant changes. And you're like, wow, I didn't plan for this.
Yeah, and I think also, obviously both of us work, extensively in Toronto and beyond, but main core is Toronto. Toronto is not an easy city to live in, and even if you're making 200,000 a year, 300,000 a year, the average house is 1.5 million, 2 million, and then maybe you've got kids, you got to pay for camp, your car, your cell phone. So even if you have a very strong income, the money burns very quickly. I don't necessarily see people, driving Ferraris and wearing $180,000 watches. I mean, people are spending money, but Toronto is a very expensive city to live in. And just to, there was a Toronto Life article maybe 5 or 10 years ago with like a husband and wife, and they had their sort of pockets out like they're poor. And it was like, hey, we make 350,000 a year, but we have a mortgage and we have 2 car leases and our kids are in private school and 1 or 2 other things. And it's like, we have no money.
It's so easy to burn through money. People don't,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't realize, as far as if you're going to keep those 2 car payments, if you're going to have a second home, whether it's going to be a cottage or in a different country, for example, or a timeshare of some sorts, you like to eat out very often. It's amazing. It's, you can just rack it up. And, I tell people, try to take credit card free days where you're going to say, I'm going to be disciplined today. I'm not going to put something on the credit card unless it's an emergency and I have to. Because, as far as buying a $7 latte and then going and grabbing a bite to eat because I didn't want to pack my lunch, it adds up very quickly. And it's like, you go for a meat free meal or meat free day, try to have a credit card free day and try to create that discipline. One of the things I'll tell you, as far as our friendship goes, uh, I've seen people my whole life, as far as the evolution of them, and having one personality and having to settle down as they got young, as they got older. Very often, we have our impulses and everything else as we're young, and we got growing pains. You're one person, one of the few people, if any, the one person I know that was always very disciplined from a young age, as far as having a career trajectory, as far as having a life and having a big picture plan for yourself, not always living in the moment. And I think that carried you very much through. And one of the first things I would have told my younger self, if I can go back now, is listen to Elan more when I was younger. And that's one of the things I was going to ask you was, if you could go now, knowing what you know today, to yourself when you graduated from high school, let's say, and you're about to start university, you're about to become an adult, you're going to turn 17, 18. What's the one thing you would tell yourself now looking back, if you could?
I mean, that's a tough one. If I had to think about it, I think it would be like, don't do the corporate thing, do the entrepreneurial thing. I just think that I was built for it. And I think there's more opportunity. And, again, it's one of those things that having that corporate background certainly helped me. But it's also this question of like, if I hadn't have done that, what could I have built over those years as well? So it's a bit of a question mark.
I gotta say, like, one of the things that definitely pushed me as far as wanting to be on, working for myself, is mentors told me the only thing that I can tell you, and this is a mentor or mentors as far as having their own businesses, is the only thing I wish I could have done differently was I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
Once you go for yourself, you control your own destiny. You don't generally want to go back to the old ways, and that's one of the things I
Yeah.
noticed very much so.
And I
So
think it's also personality. Like some people are built for the corporate world and other people are built to be entrepreneurs, and that's fine.
and that's one of the things, is that it's hard to, it's exactly a good point, it's hard to compare yourself to somebody else, because not everybody has that entrepreneur spirit. Some people want the security, are very good with that, and don't want to take on the risk, because when you are on your own, you take a chance that you're not going to eat for days, if not weeks or months, that you have to have
Yeah.
different sort of planning. You don't have that secured salary with that 9 to 5 job and with that paycheck every 2 weeks. And it's something I talk about with realtors all the time in a very similar profession. realtor, mortgage broker, as far as working on your own for yourself, even though you're part of a company, really you're an independent person under the guise of the
Yeah.
company. And you don't do a transaction for a couple months, you're not getting paid. That's the reality that no one's going to pay
Yeah.
you. So it's strictly commission based, but the ceiling is very, very high if you're ready to put in that work.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If you're the upside is more unlimited. There's certainly downside, but having that upside. What I tell my new agents is the good news and the bad news is that you're on commission. And you could look at it both ways. Like I look at it as a good way. I'm proud that I'm on commission because part of that, what that means to me is I fight extremely hard for my clients. I want them to have a great experience. I want them to refer me to friends and family. And I'm directly compensated based on my competence and my ability to deliver. Whereas if I'm on a salary and it's like 4:45 on a long weekend, I'm like, cool, it's 4:45. Like, send a voicemail, shut it down.
So let me ask you. I see all the time on LinkedIn, you're always hiring. So that's very clear. You're very good promoting at that. If anybody's ever seen Elan's profile, it's fantastic, as far as you're going to learn how to make a great LinkedIn profile. So let's say I noticed your profile. We both went to Schulich at York University. I'm 19, 20 years old. I'm finishing up my undergrad. And I come to you. I've never really been interested in finance. Like I didn't think I was going to work for a bank, but I want to have a high upside. I want to work hard and I want to make a lot of money and I want to build a career for myself. Why should I get into mortgages? Like, how often do you get the young people come as far as recruiting that have never done sales, never been in banking? Because I know there's one stretch of people that I meet that have worked for a bank for a long time. They were a mortgage rep and then finally said, why am I doing this? I should work for myself. And then they become a mortgage
Yeah.
broker independently. But for somebody, let's say graduating or fairly young and haven't had their first career yet, why would you steer them? Why should they be considering getting into the mortgage broker industry?
Well, it's kind of funny. There's almost this thing inside the mortgage broker industry, which is like, hey, how did you become a mortgage broker? Because normally it's not something that's like, oh, I want to be a mortgage broker when I grow up, or I'm a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer or a police officer or whatever it is. It's kind of like this thing. So, it's funny, but Sean got into it because of me. I got into it because of Sean. But I've actually reached out in the last couple of weeks, and we're going to be doing a lot of on-campus recruiting for young graduates across, Seneca College, York, U of T, Western, Guelph, like all of these colleges and universities, because it's not something that people think about top of mind, but it is a great career, a great opportunity, and it's something that we actually believe that we can help people who are new graduates, build a career and a business out of it. So I think first of all, it's just awareness of like, hey, there's this thing called being a mortgage broker. Have you thought of it? And it's like, well, I'm a arts grad, I'm a music grad, I'm a science grad. I don't know what I want to do. And it's like, okay, let's talk about it. So what is a mortgage broker? So, you work to get clients and help them find a great mortgage. So again, there's elements of, what I call business math. So it's not calculus. It's not, all these crazy log cosine. It's multiplication, division, percentages. It's, grade 7 to grade 9 math. And it's client service. It's sales, it's delivering a marketing campaign, it's networking, and it's just something that a lot of people never think about. And then they're like, wait a minute, this is actually interesting. I get to help people, be involved in real estate. Obviously, a lot of Canadians love real estate. I get to do math. I get to build a business. And again, it's something that we're actually really doubling down on, is sort of on-campus recruiting.
So let's take that new recruit, and one of the things that I hear it in my industry. I'm sure you hear it in yours, and almost any industry these days. They'll say, "How do I break through as a young graduate? I have no experience. I have no knowledge." There are these people that seem that they have endless amounts of money because they do marketing nonstop. I see them on billboards, on the bus. I see them online. They're paying for Google ads, and They have this whole network and this whole team. How can I compete with this? Why would anybody want to work with me? And they start building up those roadblocks in their mind, and they haven't even started yet. So for that person that gets overwhelmed seeing what's out there, and they're like, wow, like how do I start when somebody is so much far ahead of me and there's so much competition? How do you help walk them off the ledge?
Well, I do think that you need a very positive mindset, especially as an entrepreneur and in a non-salaried role. So if you come in and you're open-minded and you're hardworking and you're, willing to put in the effort, the opportunity is there. And it could be, one of the things that I believe in is people should deliver their marketing and sales based on their skills and abilities. So if you're really good at digital marketing, focus on that. If you're good at giving presentations, focus on that. If you love talking with people, focus on that. So really, everyone builds their own marketing program, but it is a function of working hard, trying different things, experimenting. But it does start with the foundation of training, of understanding the different lenders, the different frameworks, so that you have some confidence, you have some competence, and ultimately you can build on it. But Rome isn't built in a day. You're not gonna, 99.9% of people are not gonna come in and crush it on day one.
So now, to give it a little sneak peek for somebody who is thinking about getting into the industry,
Yeah.
how long does it take to get certified? Do they have to go to school? They take an
Yeah.
exam? Like what, like from beginning to end, like roughly, what is the process if one wants to become a mortgage broker?
So it's actually very quick to become a mortgage broker from a licensing point of view. You have to write one exam. You could probably write the exam within, 1 to 3 weeks and pass the exam. Once you pass the exam, you need to align yourself with a mortgage brokerage like Mortgage Outlet. And we do hire and recruit brand new agents, full-time, part-time. Obviously, we have experienced and seasoned agents and bankers, but some people that we've recruited, they do it as a part-time job until they get familiar and customized or familiar and knowledgeable about the industry, and then they quit their full-time job and do it part-time. So there are different stepping stones to becoming a mortgage broker, at least even on a part-time basis.
The interesting thing about Mortgage Outlet I've noticed compared to other brokerages is that cohesiveness. It's funny because, most mortgage agents I know just say, I have to belong to somewhere, but it doesn't matter. Nobody even knows which brokerage I'm part of, and they don't take a lot of pride in it. I noticed that in Mortgage Outlet, you come there, you notice the cohesiveness. It's a real family atmosphere, the teamwork, and people like to come to the office, work together. I noticed that at seminars. How how did you guys build that energy and be able to build that family when other brokerages, just seem to be, just existing but not wanting to be thriving?
I think that, Sean and I care about our people and we want to help them succeed. And, what I tell people, and I really believe this is, I'm not perfect. Sean is not perfect, but we try very hard and we care very deeply. And, that goes a long way. Like if an agent calls us and it's late at night and they're struggling with a particular file or situation, or, they need a major exception from a lender, or they need to revamp their business plan, they know that we're committed to doing whatever we can to help them succeed. And I think that's kind of the foundation of where it comes from.
That's one of the beautiful things I noticed. And that's definitely, as far as being able to do real estate in Ontario, Canada versus other parts of the world is, you can have AI and you can have, cheap online rates and all this. But people forget, it's that service aspect that is so important when they have those questions, when situations come up and it's not cookie cutter and they have to run scenarios after the mortgage gets registered, after the transaction is done, and more questions come up. Having that service professional they can count on. It used to be in the old day that you had your professional for your given subject matter, and this is the person you relied upon for your whole existence. And there's not as much loyalty as there used to be, but I think it's coming back because I think people are appreciating the service aspect. I'm seeing it certainly in the legal field for sure.
Yeah.
And I would say in the mortgage industry, like Elan, if somebody works with you and says, I had a tight purchase, I didn't know if I was able to close my mortgage and you got it done for me. I presume that loyalty goes a long way as far as working together and then working with their friends and family. I mean, the best advertisement I've always said is word of mouth, right?
Yeah, and I think the dynamic is that mortgages are actually much more complicated than people think they are. So, someone has a rental property and they have US debt and they have a side gig and they drive Uber and they rent out their basement and they're divorced, but their kids are 17 and they get child tax credit. Like, it's not as simple as like, oh, I just put that through and the bank approves it. Like, you have to make sure you go to the right lender. You're taking a credit product. And what that means is it's not, I want to go into Costco and buy an iPhone and you pay the money and you get it. Just because you want TD Bank or you want Scotia or Manulife or Desjardins or whoever it is, that doesn't mean that they want you. And again, if you have 6 kids and you try to buy a 2-seater Ferrari, that's not going to work. So you need to go into the minivan store. And if you're not doing that, so the what it boils down to is the complexity means that you really need to work with an expert. You need to work with an expert real estate lawyer, expert mortgage broker, expert realtor, because if you're not working with an expert, they can't handle the complexity of the situation, and ultimately bad things are going to happen.
Thank goodness they now have Ferrari SUVs, so that definitely saves that person.
Well, not 7-seater, but
not yet. That's always going to be the dream. I got to ask you, from the time you started with mortgages to where you are today as a mortgage broker. I mean, you've been in the industry now for a number of years. How has the industry itself evolved? How have you found as far as the industry in general, as far as mortgages, as far as customers expectations? What's it been like over the last 10, 15 years, the evolution of mortgages in Ontario specifically?
I mean, to me, I think it's all kind of regulation, complexity, just even the lingo, stress test, trigger rates, trigger point. A lot of these things we never, ever, 8 years ago, we never really talked about. People had a mortgage of 2.39% and they qualified at a rate of 2.39%. Like, it was that simple. There's very strict definitions of income. OSFI, which is the federal regulator, is really focused on making sure the banks are solid and solvent and, well positioned in case of any downturns. So there's a lot of complexity. Whereas before, I don't want to say that we had YOLO mortgages, but actually, 8 years ago, if you bought a property with 35% down, a lot of lenders were like, cool, 35% down, mortgage is approved. And now it's like, well, where did the 35% come from? What country did it come from? Is it in Bitcoin? But not even that. Okay, you're putting 35% down. How are you going to afford your mortgage payments? Show us that you can afford it. So, again, OSFI is really against any sort of equity programs where, oh, I'm putting 50% down. And the funny thing is, I have a lot of clients, and this is part of navigating the complexity. I have banks that were fighting over, a teacher married to a nurse with 5% down, but I have an entrepreneur with 50% down and they don't have a clean source of income and the banks don't want to touch them. It's like, well, he is 50% down. Like, how are you going to lose money? And you're fighting over the teacher and the nurse with 5% down. But that's just the regulatory environment. But the broader point is that because of the complexity, that's the overwhelming change. It is more and more and more important to work with an expert.
I've heard you said this one before, but I got to ask you now on the air. How many times I've heard of a purchaser that's going to buy a property. They decide, you know what, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go in one of the major banks. I'm going to see what mortgage I can get. And they get a rude awakening because they tell me afterwards, they're like, oh, it took about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I got approved. It says I'm approved. Here's how much I'm going to pay. Here's the amount I'm going to get as far as a mortgage. And then when it comes time to actually go ahead with the mortgage, things have changed. So Elan, what is this stage of approval versus real approval? I guess it's pre-approval versus actual approval. There is a difference, right?
Yeah, and I have a blog post, and the title is that mortgage pre-approvals should be illegal in Canada. And the reason I say that is people think that a pre-approval is a guarantee. And it's like, I'm guaranteed for a mortgage. I'm guaranteed for, $1 million. But it can fall apart very quickly in a couple of ways. So the most obvious way that it can fall apart is you might be pre-approved for $1 million. You have a good income, good credit, good down payment. But then the property you buy, number one, it's not livable. So when I say the word livable, I mean, it's got bad electrical wiring or mold, or it has structural issues. So the bank doesn't want to lend money because the collateral is not livable. That's the first one. The second one is the house or the property doesn't appraise. So what does that mean? It means you paid 1.3 million for your property, but all the other houses on the street are worth 1.1 million. And you got carried away in a bidding war and bid 200,000 more than all the other recent sales. Well, the bank will lend you money, but they're going to base it on the appraised value, not what you paid. If you decide to go bonkers and pay 1.3 million, but all the other houses are selling for 1.1 million, you're not going to get that approval, and you're going to have to come up with that $200,000 shortfall or deficit. But then the other part of the pre-approval, so that's like the property. But then there's the other part where, it's funny, but they have online calculators. And, I present at the Toronto Real Estate Board, I present at various real estate brokerages. But one of my pet peeves is these online calculators, because people type in, oh, I make 100,000 a year and I have this and I have that, but it's not precise. Maybe their salary is 92,000 and they get an $8,000 bonus, or they're on commission, or they're on probation, or they have student loans, or. So number one, step one is a pre-approval needs to be fully underwritten, which means that all documents need to be reviewed, credit check, if there's any foreign income, foreign down payment, it all needs to be reviewed. That's the first part. And the second part is, even if, good income, good credit, good down payment, but then before you make an offer, you should be sending the MLS to the mortgage broker so that they can see, like, oh, wait a minute, this says mold, this says water issue in the basement, this says, wiring is bad, whatever. And that's a conversation you need to have with your mortgage broker, because some people, some banks will simply walk away based on the fact that the property is not livable.
So many considerations. Well, I got to ask you, so you see them more from your end than my end, but I bring you 100 people off the street, right? All 100 people are going to tell you, I have good credit, no issues, I'm solid, right? Mm-hmm. From those 100 people, how many are actually going to have good credit and no issues whatsoever on a mortgage application?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a two-part question. I actually think people are decent at self-identifying, like, I have good credit, like, okay, I have good credit. But I think it's more the income that's the issue, because again, I get a huge bonus, or I'm self-employed. I'm hourly and I work a lot of overtime. I rent out my basement. So there's a lot of income that you in the real world are like, yeah, I make a ton of income. Or, oh, I own a property and my mom rents it from me. Well, banks don't like to take rental income from mom, because are you really going to evict your mom? So credit, people are decent at, articulating, hey, have you been in collections? Have you been bankrupt? Like, those are pretty easy questions. It's more the income that becomes the issue. Or like, I work approximately 20 hours a week. Well, banks don't like the word approximately. They want precise numbers. How long have you been working there? Are you on probation? And I actually remember vividly, I had a client and he was like, oh, you don't need to ask me all these questions. I'm a good borrower. And then I kind of said, okay, well, oh, you've got he's like, yeah, I'm a full-time job. I get full-time hours, da, da, da. And I said, oh, well, how long have you been there? And he said, 2 months. And I said, oh, are you on probation? And he said, yeah, I'm on probation. So it's like, you might even think, but even that element, like, again, we have many lenders that are fine with probation, but that's not something I want to find out 3 days before the purchase closing date. I want to know that on day one.
Amazing. So many things to consider. And that's why you want to have the right professional on staff and assisting you in getting your transaction done. Elan, I got to tell you, your wealth of knowledge and we'll have the contact information for you, certainly for everybody to reach out to you if they have any questions on their particular mortgage, purchase, refinance. Who are the type of people that you assist, type of clients, types of properties, and how can they get in touch with you best?
Well, email is great. Elan, ELAN at mortgageoutlet.ca, or, call or text 647-501-4663. Again, you could go on mortgageoutlet.ca and find my information, but email and text is always great. Also, like social media, I'm pretty active, not on TikTok, but the mainstream programs for sure.
And the types of clients, types of properties, like should be working with you?
Well, I there's kind of two lenses. So on the borrower side, first-time buyers, investors. I work with a lot of physicians, a lot of landlords. I help people refinance to consolidate debt, private mortgages. As one of the owners, I do have a pretty broad spectrum of lenders that I work with. And then the other lens is people that are looking for, a new career. We are recruiting actively and looking for great people. Again, it's not easy. I hope that just this discussion highlights all the different complexities of the business. But again, if you're hardworking, bright, committed, focused on your clients, there's definitely a huge opportunity.
And for our final thoughts of today's episode, for that person or people, couple, family looking to do a purchase, it's their first purchase, their 10th, going to refinance, what can you tell them as far as mortgages and things to look for and where the state of mortgages are today?
I mean, I would say the most important thing is whoever you work with reviews all of your documents, just so there are no surprises. It's funny, but even when, I ask people how old are my kids, and they say, well, why is that relevant? And part of it is, well, if your kids are 15 or 16 and you're getting child tax credit and you want a 5-year mortgage, well, if they're 16, the child tax credit is going to run out. But if they're 3, then there's enough runway on the child tax credit. So the most important thing is really working with someone that asks you for a lot of documents. Right? You never go, if I needed knee surgery and the physician didn't need CAT scan, MRI, EKG, X-ray, blood pressure, and they just threw me on the surgery table and said, let's go. That's not the surgeon I want to work with. I want the surgeon to work with that they know that if I'm allergic to penicillin, they know that before the surgery, not in the middle of the surgery.
Elan Weintraub, Mortgage Outlet, King of Metaphors. I appreciate it very
Absolutely.
much. That was actually a good one. And I may even use that one in the future if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing the inspiration as far as, first of all, for people that are thinking about getting into the mortgage industry, how to become a mortgage agent broker, for people that are looking to get a mortgage in the future, getting worried as far as where things are at. You give a nice calming presence and as far as stating where things are at. So this should give people hope, certainly. And as we are right now, going into the summer, the peak season 2023. I can tell you as a real estate lawyer, deals are flying in constantly. Like this is, like what they call peak season, and real estate's going. I tell people don't always listen to what the media has to say, but ask the professionals who are in it, and it's a good sign. People are looking to buy, looking to sell. The one thing people tell me all the time in real estate is just there's not enough inventory. If more people would get off their keister and decide to change their homes, there'd be more inventory, but people hold back sometimes. So that's the only thing as far as from not even a negative standpoint, but just more inventory out there. But it's good to see that people are, you have first time buyers, you have people that have to change their homes for whatever reason. They're relocating for a job, their marital status changes. There's always reasons why people do what they do. And that's where it's always good to work with the right professionals from day one, certainly.
Absolutely.
Well, look to have you back very soon on The Chosen Life. Thank you very much today
Thank
for your
you.
time and guidance. And we'll see you all back soon on The Chosen Life.